Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for being here. I'm Alex Levin. We're here together in this miraculous portal, courtesy of Sun and Moon Yoga Studio. And I'm in my home. We can have all these different ways of connecting and supporting each other in our practices, right? These days. My dog is nearby. He's gone to the tile where it's a little cooler. So, for this roughly half hour, make sure you have what you need for support. I today may shift my sitting to a block. Have that nearby. I've got a shawl if the air conditioning starts to blow right at me. So take we can take some responsibility and some proactive measures to have what we need for ourselves. And we need to know what that is. That's some of today's theme. What are we today? Undeniable kindness tendency. So, this time together will consist of me um, pontificating on my theme a little bit, on what I've been ruminating on this week, these last few days, and what's bubbling up in my practice. Um, it will then consist of some movement. I've been doing meditation first sometimes lately, but I'm going to go into very, very subtle movement. So you'll be able to do that from sitting, lying down, standing up, whatever position feels solid for you. Or and then we'll slide right into meditation. Sometimes those transitions will be marked with a bell. I tend to be inconsistent. I think that's just how I am. Um, I'm beginning to embrace a little more of these ways of how I am as opposed to how I think others expect me to be. So this shirt, I've worn it often. It's one of my favorite shirts. It's a design that from one of our in-depth teacher training groups who graduated in 2017, their year 2016, 2017, and there were three of them who got together and made designs, and one of them made it happen to create t-shirts. So, and last year's group, I believe, has a t-shirt. I don't have mine yet. I'll have to see about getting that. So, um, it's a new group starting in September, I think. I'm not sure exactly of the date. I was going to look that up. Check our website, sunandmoonstudio.com, where you'll also see a rich a smorgasbord of offerings to participate in our community. So arrive and make yourself comfortable to listen for a little while. You know what? Maybe I'll scoot up close so that if you have a comment during my chat, I'll see it and um and be able to respond. And if you're watching later or from wherever on the planet you're watching, welcome, welcome as well. If not real time, Sunday mornings, East Coast time at 10 o'clock. I feel I'm a perpetual student, and that inconsistency has to do with I'm often on the edge of learning new, and I think that's healthy. I think it's good. I think it's definitely we are dynamic. Life is always dynamic, always changing, and some of that change is uncomfortable, and some of it is really welcome. Right? I don't know if you have times when you've really been ready for a change and you've made it, and the excitement, the buoyancy, and uh, the joy of that. And other times our changes are just hard, really hard. Forgot why I went down that. Oh, inconsistency. So sometimes it looks like I'm inconsistent, but I'm so here this is an interesting discrepancy, or does another word I'm looking for. There's a little difference there. Inconsistency, what it actually is for me is I'm digesting, I'm on the edge of something new, I'm changing, I'm accepting change, I'm looking at how things have been and realizing maybe there's another way. So one of my edges is that I've been studying for the last 4 years in a really slow way because and I think it's good. This is a really new to digest system. Many of you might be familiar with the name of it, nonviolent communication, championed by Marshall Rosenberg, and he has passed away now. My teacher, Russell Delman of the Embodied Life School, he studied with him in person. The methods he proposes or his discoveries and how we communicate and how we might push our envelope to communicate better. It's a s- it's a s- it's changing hundreds and several thousand years of the way we've communicated. One of the underlying underpinnings of his work, as I see it, is that if if one of us humans perceives another human in distress, in suffering, that our tendency is toward kindness. That kindness is just our natural response to suffering, to another's uncomfortable position. I sort of question that even myself. Um, there is research to to um, support that, and there's probably your own experience to support that. But some people, I have heard some people who believe, sort of the Cain and Abel story of our innate tendency is to protect ourselves and at all costs. So maybe both are true in how maybe we can see how both are true. And so if there's if when we see suffering in another, but if our own suffering, if our own patterns and our own need to protect that suffering is in us, and for many of us there is that, that might be at odds sometimes, and perhaps especially because those sufferings, some of those are deep, deep, deep inside and layered over with a way to protect, or a strategy to protect ourselves, or scar tissue, emotional or physical scar tissue that protects us. And so that will sort of take precedence and will protect our own suffering with the way we think, or that's not even thinking, the way we've responded with what was best, what was kindest at some time. Maybe it's not the best way to interact at this moment. So I'll give a little example of how I've seen this personally in my life. And again, I reiterate that if you start looking into his methods, his steps, Marshall Rosenberg's, and um, learn with me here about this and start trying it out in your own life, you might stumble. Um, as I said, it's hundreds and several thousand years of the way we've related, and in our own life, maybe some of us, many decades or many years of how we've responded. So be gentle with yourself, be forgiving, be willing, if this resonates for you, to to um, to jump in and be patient and try again, and ask maybe the ones around you to be patient. So I hope I am audible and all visible and all. Last week I had an issue with that. So um, for me, with my partner, with my husband, I one of the patterns I've gotten to see over the last years, he'll say something. My protective pattern is, I mean, he might be expressing a suffering of his, but what happens in me is the protective pattern jumps in, and I want to explain or fix. And so I've gone into that. And so here I'm talking about how that undeniable kindness is sometimes covered up. I'll go into my response, which is more about tending to me, and that's good, but we don't meet. We end up pushing farther apart. And what I've gotten to see over time, I do care about his suffering in that moment. what he's trying to express. And how I've been able to meet it more fully is sort of put my own self on the back burner and just show up with space, show up with sometimes silence, show up sometimes with me. It's like, I'm not sure what you're expressing. And in that space, often, in that willingness for myself to just zip it, shut it for a moment, a few what feels like a few long moments, I am able to open to what's needed more in his position, mine, and the whole relationship. So, all this to say, the silence we practice in sitting is such an important, the silent stillness is an important training to be able to hold, hold that kind of space. By itself, it is an enriching, just a coming home and a good place to be by itself. And yet if we can get I and many of us can get drawn into, oh well, I would just like to be in that meditative space forever. And I'd just like to, there's a sensing, a knowing, I think, that we want to bring that to life because the two are always being, always becoming. The always being is the meditation piece. It's so enriching if we can know that place better and know and feel how it's available anytime. And it's and we can bring it into life. And the movement part of this practice together is a bridge, is an important bridge for that. It's like Thich Nhat Hanh's mindful walking or mindfully washing the dishes, where we can see how we can have that silent stillness, not lose it as we are in relationship to ourself and to others. Everything other, whether it's to a cushion, to a dog, to a human, to our community, to our family. All right, so enough talk. Set yourself up so you're very, very, very comfortable. You could be sitting, so you hopefully you've been comfortable as we've been talking. I've been talking, and comfortable place will you could be lying down, sitting. Close our eyes. Lean into feeling the support of ground and her cohort gravity, her partner gravity. And that's sort of it's vertical axis of the symbol of the cross, actually. And let the body settle. Take some time through your body, through our bodies, to sense ground and this gravitational force that's coming through our body at all points of our body, but especially through the center, especially if we're sitting or standing. Making perhaps minor adjustments to feel how we can just let this grid of gravity that has this downward pull and corresponding upward lift hold us. So it's a bit of a letting go in that many of us hold tight to the ways we want to support ourselves by ourselves. And that's very isolating. It's a good, not a bad thing. Like with everything, it's got two sides. But can we allow this gravitational field to support us? this atmospheric blanket around our planet, around our home, our physical home. You might let in the feel of our breath and the dynamism of that. We're noticing, and this is all really so pertinent in our how we always become, how we relate better to ourselves and others, is noticing every little thing, and not like a burden, but where have I placed my hands with a kindness, with a inquisitiveness. How is the breath available today? And noticing sound and space around. Sound that appears to originate out there and arrive in here. Temperature, I can feel here the air moving in this space, the cooler, conditioned air. Perhaps we notice in also I take it in the sort of surround as the jaw might have noticed it could release a bit. So lightly from like a spacious sense of attention, an easeful space of attention, we're watching these movements as we're anchored, as we're just anchored. And with an anchor, I like that it's the anchor's heavy and still, and this metaphor that the boat connected can still, through the tether of the rope, can still has the little freedom. It's not a rigidity. It's not a totally black and white. It's the yin yang, the dot of white in the black, the dot of black in the white. Never extreme, never. Um, can't remember the word. I think you know what I mean. And now the movement, the micro movement. Let your eyes gently, with the eyes closed. You can do this eyes open, but I think closed is preferable, more subtle and inner experience. Let them pull up toward the 12 on a clock if the eyes had clock faces, and then just come down toward the 6, up and down a few times slowly. We can even notice with this little movement, is there some shift in our breathing and is there some for example, I feel a smoother line with the left eye than the right eye. What do you notice about this movement? And how might you notice that a judgment, an evaluation or judgment may be coming in, like that I'm not, there might have been an assumption that this line must be smooth and straight, which is kind of where we're going toward. But do you criticize yourself if it's not? Could be very, very subtle. All right, let the eyes rest just anywhere they land. Find the middle of your eye with your gaze and let the eyes now go left and right, like between the 6 and the 9. And indeed, in the kind of the way I approach movement, we do look for what's smoothest, what's easiest, what's most pleasurable. And not to say that a bumpy ride might not be pleasurable. Do you notice that your head might start to turn? And if you land your eyes deep to the left, notice what you notice. And if you land your eyes over deep to the right, And how far, if you pull, you notice you can pull quite far, and that creates almost a strain. Maybe you feel a strain. Maybe you like that pull, or maybe you'll just go short of that. Maybe you notice other kind of changes in light, or um, I had a little micro explosion, like a little like comic symbol of explosion just happen. And then again, let your eyes rest. Perhaps, and first I'll invite you before I say the perhaps, see what you notice as we rest about the whole body, the state of your mind, or the energetic state that perhaps is a little quieter. And this, as I mentioned last week, when we focus, I often mention, when we focus on one thing with dedication, with honing in, and with a relaxedness, it includes the all. We can also be aware of the fullness of all our experience. It might change what we're experiencing. It's not that it's wrong to have high energy, to work forcefully, but like with many things for us, for many of us, it's tangled up. We're over exerting when we don't need to be. And that can drain us for having the energy available, the resource to really available when it's needed. So one more little movement with the eyes. Take them up to the 12 o'clock, both eyes, and slowly circle to the counterclockwise, to the left, toward the 11, the 10. Slowly looking for the smooth path and seeing what happens in your own psyche and being when it gets jittery, jolty, or skips. Do about 3 of those slow circles, saying hello to whatever we encounter. And saying hello can be at a distance, can be up close. How can we stay kind to ourselves in whatever we encounter? And I think it's what we want. I think it's undeniably where we want to be, in a state of kindness. I could be wrong. After those 3 circles, pause. Notice what is here now in the whole space of your physical knowing, emotional heart knowing, logical, perceptual mind knowing. Sort of knowing from that wholeness. And then when you're ready, take your time. Really, when you're ready. It could take a long time. Perhaps you're just grooving on stillness now. Take those same circles clockwise from the 12 over to the 1, 2, etc. 3 circles. Breathe. And when I say large circles, maybe it doesn't feel smooth and comfortable to make them, or kind to make them really big. Maybe it's not hula hoop big, but it's frisbee size big. And let yourself rest. And we'll segue right into, let yourself hold on to the quiet, feel the quiet and calm. And we'll segue right into just about 5 minutes of silence, stillness. That's the caveat that if you found you needed to shift something, I'm changing my hand arm position to the mudra I take in meditation, where we're just here. We can notice, is it easy to be just here? And do we find that harmony and ease? And perhaps we find that, but there's also in this space a pull. Maybe it's subtle or maybe it's strong. Maybe it's overpowering. And can we hold that? Can we have a strong enough anchor, strong enough support of knowing that we're safe? Because meeting with these edges can bring up trepidation, fear, some past encounter that we encapsulated and really has something to teach us, to inform us, to enrich us, our own archive. And just to inquire on this topic I'm chewing on, presenting, is there, how might kindness, the urge for kindness be present? Could be just little background inquiry in this, is simply being here now. Couple more breaths. So, as we will make a transition slowly, during this time we've lingered in several different mind states, really different places of differently receptive and different with different abilities and gifts. Listening to my talk, we were in our logical mind and our um, analytical, perhaps primarily, starting to settle as we were kind of sitting quietly toward a more quiet mind as we go into the body, into primarily sensing movement and letting language go in the background a little, but it's always got a presence. And then coming into silence, into the spaciousness, into our connection with our source, our home. And all of those, they're always all present, and that's valuable for us. But lingering in them each, and to know that we can hop with agility from one to another can be a great skill, great superpower. Um, and so, in for your homework this week, and for your inquiry, and you can shape it to be how you need it to be, customize it. Is to You might sense of where what draws your kindness. What do you feel kindness to? Maybe your garden, toward someone in your family in particular, toward maybe a situation that arises, or you might notice how um, it's absent. It's absent in certain situations that are tense, that are difficult, and also toward yourself. And we'll play more with this, of course, all of this. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your work in trying to bring more harmony, more understanding, and more connection and wisdom to our planet, our universe. Ciao, ciao.